Below the Bar podcast is not meant to be taken as legal advice. It is purely used for entertainment purposes. Corbin and I are not attorneys. In fact, we haven't even graduated law school yet.
We don't even know if we're going to graduate.
We don't even know if we're going to graduate. That's scary. So if you have any legal concerns, please, I urge you guys to seek an actual attorney. With that being said, I hope you enjoy this episode, and that's all I have to say. Hey guys, welcome to Below the Bar podcast. My name is Drew.
And I'm Corbin.
And today we're going to be talking about spite fences. This is a really fun area of property law.
Yeah, spite fences are great just because they're such a petty thing, just right off the bat.
So petty. And we all have had bad neighbors.
Yeah, definitely. I've had a couple different experiences with bad neighbors just throughout my life. The last place I lived was when I was in college, and you know, college students throw parties. And so one night we threw a party and police ended up showing up and kicking everybody out, which was fine. And the next morning I went over to both of my neighbors and I was like, hey guys, just want to let you know, I'm sorry that it got out of control. My one neighbor was like, oh, it's fine. It happens. I get it. I went over to my other neighbor and she was like, well, you're just lucky that the police got there before my son did, because he has his license to carry and he was going to threaten you if you didn't shut down the party. And I was like,
wow, what?
I was like, yeah. I was like, all right, well, that's illegal and he can't do that. She ended up getting evicted a couple months later, and I was very excited about that.
Yeah, really, you've had worse neighbors than me. I've kind of lucked out on the neighbor side of things. I mean, we have neighbors that they don't, I've had neighbors that don't clean up after their dogs, but my sister-in-law, her and her husband have a neighbor. And every time that they have a fire in their backyard, their one neighbor will come out his upstairs window and dump water down onto it and extinguish their fire.
Oh, I'd be so mad.
And they're always bickering back and forth. But wouldn't it be nice to build a wall around neighbors like that?
It would be great. You just wouldn't have to deal with them anymore.
Yeah.
And
throw up a spite fence.
Spite fence?
Yeah.
So a spite fence is a fence of no beneficial use to the owner and which is only put in place for the purpose of annoying your neighbor.
Yeah, and that was taken from the case Austin v. Ball. And I'm sure it's been, defined in other cases, but that was just a pretty succinct definition of what a spite fence is. And yeah, it's just a fence that typically it's a neighbor builds for the sole purpose of irritating his other neighbor.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean, I just can't imagine. Like I said, I've had bad neighbors, and I just still can't imagine taking the time and effort out of my day to build a fence solely to annoy somebody so much.
Oh, I could. Give me a hammer and some nails, and I'm doing it. So the case today is called Sundowner v. King, and this is a pretty, I think this is a typical case that people go over in property law 1L year. Regarding spite fences, it's a pretty funny case. It starts out, by the way, this case was in Idaho, so if you're in Idaho listening, just know that this is from your beautiful state, and this would be the law as far as Idaho goes. It starts with this man named Robert Bushnell. He ends up selling this motel to the Kings. After he sells the motel, he ends up building the Desert Inn in the adjoining lot, which I think's kind of a crappy move.
Yeah, I mean, not only does it suck that he sold a motel to somebody and then immediately built a motel directly next to him. So it sucks for the people that they sold the hotel to, but I just don't think it's a good business move on his point.
It's
either.
Competing. I mean,
just keep the original motel.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Sorry, people in Idaho, but I can't imagine much going on in Idaho to where you're going to have a ton of people vying for a motel room. You want to. I mean, who's going to Idaho?
I've never been to Idaho.
Me neither. We should go.
Let's go. We can go to these motels.
Let's go right now. Thank you for listening. I'm just kidding. So Yeah, so King sue Bushnell based on misrepresentations in the cell of this motel. And things just kind of got out of hand after that. Oh, they sued them. Well, Corbin, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so the King sued Bushnell because of the misrepresentations, and I can't remember exactly the outcome of that case, but in the end, the Kings were so annoyed by that they built a fence that was 16 inches away from the adjoining property.
Let's put fence in hard air quotes, too.
Yeah.
Fence.
So this fence was 85 feet long, 18 feet tall, and I don't know why, but it was raised 2 feet off the ground. It makes me think that they had enough materials to build 18 feet of fence when they needed it to be 20 feet of fence. So they took bed risers, like from college, and they were just like, you know what? We'll just
raise it
up.
Just raise it up.
They just wanted to block all of the motel that was directly next to them.
It's crafty. But if you have a basement room,
you could still see a little bit.
Yeah. But if let's be real, if you're staying in the basement of a motel in Idaho, your life's not going so well.
Well,
we're
that,
really
you
cut
don't
up
really,
on Idaho. I don't mean to.
Yeah, that, and you probably don't really care about the sun that much at that point.
Right.
But that was one of the big things about this case is the fact that this fence blocked, what was it, 80% of sunlight and airflow.
Yeah.
To the one side of the motel.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just can't imagine going and you're like, I'm going to stay in this motel. And then you get there, you open the window, there's a massive fence. It's dark outside at noon.
Yeah.
And you get absolutely no air.
Dude, I imagine if you were to go into that motel and just go door to door knocking on doors, those things from The Descent would come out of each room.
Yeah. And I mean, right now we're all living through quarantine, so people don't see the light of day.
So we all kind of look like
the creatures from The Descent. Yeah. But yet people don't really see the light of day anyway. But what made me think of this is, say you want to get away to Alaska. You don't need to anymore. You want to spend 2 weeks in the dark?
Idaho. Go to this Sundown or whatever it was called. Go to this motel in Idaho and sit behind the spite fence, and you will get a real Alaskan experience. So, yeah, this fence was huge, man. This fence, this wall. Let's just call it a wall. This wall was huge, man. And as you said, it obscured 80% of air and sunlight. Bushnell sues for injunctive relief. He wants this fence, this wall, gone. He wants it out of there. I get it, you know?
Yeah, which, again, makes sense to me. Bad business move putting a motel directly by another motel that you just sold. But it's even worse for your business if there is a massive wall.
Yeah.
Just blocking all of it.
So the district court ended up ruling in favor of Bushnell. They said that this fence violated a municipal ordinance and that it was built purely out of spite, which I think that's pretty clear it was. I mean, in my opinion.
Right.
They ordered it to be reduced to 6 feet tall, which I think's beyond reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, 6 feet.
Yeah.
You can't see over it. It's not going to bother. You're not going to bother anybody on the other side of that fence.
Right.
And no one's going to bother you.
The trial court determined that the structure was a sign and that its value for advertising purposes hardly existed at all, and that the value of the Desert Inn fell as a result of the structure, and basically just that this fence served no real purpose other than to spite Bushnell. And that all makes sense.
Right, yeah. Again, I think it's pretty clear based off of just the size of how big it is. No one would go that far.
No, and given the location, it's 2 feet away from a building, between buildings. I'm trying to get a good idea as to the layout of all of this, but I couldn't imagine that being visible from any road. It's between these buildings.
Right.
So who's advertising on that?
I don't know. Like I said, the whole thing, it's 18 feet tall and it's put on bed risers for what it seems to be, to just make sure that it covers the other motel.
Yeah.
So people driving by, they might see the top of it.
Maybe.
But
hey, did you see my ad? No. Oh, why not? Because it's between
two buildings.
Two buildings, okay? Pick a better place.
Right.
It's not an ad. So the King's appeal, most of the trial court's findings, and I suppose are really just arguing that the structure was not a fence but a sign, and that it had great advertising value. And my favorite argument was that it did not block the light and airflow of the rooms at the Desert Inn. But I mean, that's something that you can go there and see.
Right. It was just factually incorrect. Like,
Right.
there was a study or something done that determined that it was 80% of both airflow and sunlight.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty specific number. I would think that
Yeah,
they
that's a
weren't
lot.
just winging it when they said 80, So the issue, I guess, just boils down to, is this a spite fence?
And yeah, I mean, again, as we've said several times, I think it's very clear that this is a spite fence. The court does go into the difference between the English rule and the American rule in property law. So the English rule is that spite fences were not an actionable wrong. You could build an igloo around your neighbor's house if you wanted. If you owned the property around your neighbor's house and you hated them that much, build an igloo.
Yeah.
Build a wall. Their house is just now in another building.
Bubble them up, put them in a bubble.
Which, again, quarantine. I'm all for it right now.
Spite fences should be really more common in today's day.
Oh,
and
yeah,
age.
for sure. But compared to the English rule, there's also the American rule, which clearly given the name is the majority rule in America. That is that if the sole purpose of the fence, wall, whatever it is on your property is to annoy your neighbors, then yeah, you can't do it.
Yeah, and isn't that? I think that's exactly how they cite that too. In like any opinion or legal document, they'll say if they're citing the American rule, they'll just put "Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't do that." Yeah.
It's
And that's legally correct, people. That's the legally.
legal jargon.
That's legal jargon right there. Res ipsa loquitur. All right.
Just don't do it.
No, don't do it. You can get injunctive relief and damages though under the American rule.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, the Idaho Supreme Court adopted the American rule and basically said this fence was a spite fence, and again, they had to reduce it to 6 feet, which, again, I think makes quite a lot of sense in this case.
Yeah.
But as we said, that was in Idaho, and Drew and I are both from Pennsylvania, so we decided to dig a little bit deeper and kind of see whether there were cases about spite fences in Pennsylvania. And we did find one that kind of laid out how Pennsylvania feels about spite fences.
Yeah. So it seems that Pennsylvania follows the English rule, which is, of course, the rule that says go ahead,
Do it.
build one.
Again,
Which makes me so happy.
yeah, again, legal jargon.
Yeah.
Do it.
Do it. That's legal jargon, guys. You're learning so much this episode. So Pennsylvania adopts the English rule. They hold dearly a person's right to use their land however they see fit. And if you guys remember from property law, or maybe if you're in property law now and you haven't gone over it yet, you have this, I think they refer to it as the bundle of sticks. It's these rights as a property owner.
Right, yeah, it's all the rights that you have as a property owner on how you're allowed to use your property.
And one of those is the right to use your land as you see fit. And that's exactly what they're talking about here. So as a property owner, you should be able to use your land however you want. And if that means building a fence that serves no purpose, then
I go back and forth on that because obviously I want to use my property as I see fit.
Yeah.
But I also don't want my neighbor building a 16-foot house
Right.
or wall around my house.
Right.
So,
yeah, I get it. I can build spite fences, but they can't.
right, yeah.
That's what
think
I want.
That's, I believe, kind of America's standpoint at this point with everything.
Yes.
And that case was Cohen v. Perino. But that case was pretty insane as well, I thought, because it dealt with two neighbors, and the one neighbor basically, I think they went away on vacation or something like that for a week and came back, and their neighbors had built a 10-foot high brick wall that was, I forget how long it was. It was something like 16 feet long or something like that.
Okay,
And it was
yeah.
also like 7 inches thick.
It was a substantial wall.
It was very...
And it's brick.
Yeah, it's brick.
Yeah.
And it was so high that it, again, blocked one side of the house completely. But it was also built 1.5 inches away from their neighbor's house. 1.5 inches, like you could open the window, reach out, and touch it.
Touch it. Yeah.
I just can't imagine. I go on vacation, I come back, and I just can't use one side of my house anymore. I can't look outside of one side of my house. It completely blocked every single window on that side of the
That's
house.
insane. But that was in Pennsylvania. So they said that the defendants were being lawfully entitled. They were lawfully entitled to erect this wall on their own land.
Right.
They will not require. They will not inquire into their motive for doing so. And I don't know if you know this. This is just a little trivia thing, but do you know what their opinion said?
I think it said something along the lines of just do it.
Did you just do it?
Yeah. They endorsed Nike in this opinion,
Yes.
or I guess Nike endorsed them in this opinion.
Yeah.
And just do it.
Yeah. So key takeaways from this episode, guys. I think the most important one is that Nike endorses Pennsylvania spite fence laws.
Supreme Court.
Yes. But seriously, guys, if you're in PA, build away. If you're in Idaho, stop.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. And that's what we got on spite fences, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, you can reach out to us on Below the Bar Podcast on Instagram and DM us any cases that you may wish to hear us talk about. And listen for us in the future. Each week on Wednesday, we'll be dropping a new episode.
Yeah, I'm sure there are several cases that people think are funny or have some ridiculous reasoning in them that we don't know about. So if you guys know any cases like that, send them on over. We love doing this.
Send them away.